What's the secret?
So when you think you have a very good message and then just asking feedback for your team, and then in bilateral, so if I do a team communication, then I might think, well, this has been very clear, because in my mind it's very clear. But then checking up in different conversations with my team, in bilaterals, in separate team meetings, I then learned that my communication wasn't clear at all. And then I could think, oh, they didn't understand it, let's explain it again. That is, I think, the simple but not the right way to move forward, to understand what did I do wrong in my communication and what should I adjust next time to make sure that my message comes across as I wanted to come across.
If you ask me sort of where did I learn my hard lesson on communication, I think this is to some extent an ongoing learning, where if you come into meetings with clear ideas and logic and are basically following your own agenda of, hey, this is the idea I have, and this is why it's a good idea, this is why it's a good idea, this is why it's a good idea, then you need to kind of check in with your audience. I think the risk is, and the personal learning I have is, before you kind of get even in there, just understand what your audience wants to hear, what is the mindset they're in, and then tailor your communication, even in the moment, to what's going on there. And it may be better to even move the numbers aside and talk to someone as a human being, or talk only images, and sort of see what is the so what here, and not only what is the kind of numbers.
So you made that mistake once?
I'm sure I made this mistake many times.
Okay.
I'm not going to claim that I'm perfect, but I
realize
what the issue is. And if there's one plea for communication by engineers, is images are very powerful, pictures. And be careful as an engineer not to use slides, PowerPoint, to just put a lot of words on a page or a lot of calculations on a page. That's not what sort of big audience communication is for. It is about what's the image and what are the big lasting impressions you want to leave behind.
You need to be aware of who's the audience. I saw somebody giving a presentation that a person in my team did to the team, and it was a very good presentation. And then he needed to give that same presentation to my colleague purchasing directors, and then it was actually, it was not so good. It was the same presentation, but what this team member didn't take into account is that the audience was totally different. So where it was very good, on target for his peers, for the team, it was not on target for the procurement directors, who are operating at a much higher level and were not aware about the context of the project he did, so we're a bit lost on the presentation he did. And I think he didn't do service to himself, because he put a lot of effort, well analysis in it, he came to a very good conclusion, but then he didn't transfer the message properly to his second audience.
Classic mistake, right? Forgetting who your audience is.
Oh, classic mistake.
Do you think that it's a mistake that happens to engineers more than maybe other professionals?
Yes, I think so. I think so. Because what engineers forget, and they get so excited in that the numbers are right, and you're trained here also in this university, you're trained if the numbers are right, well, you get a good mark, then you can go to the next class. But it is not in a business environment that if the numbers are right, that the most brilliant ideas are approved and put to implementation. The audience who needs to decide on this takes many more other factors into account when they take a decision like that. And that is often forgotten by a lot of engineers.
It's not true that engineers are focused on the analytical mindset and therefore are not as good as communicating as others.
No, not at all. I think engineers, many of them are good communicators, but in general, they need to become very good communicators if they are not already. And that should cater to also non-engineering audiences. And if you look at part of the problems that I just described around the energy transition, to some extent it's an engineering problem, right? It's very technical. It's about molecules and electrons, big investments. So how do you now communicate that story to a much broader audience? And most of our politicians, but many of our decision makers are not engineers. And even if they are, then they are not deep into the energy territory. But they are the ones that need to make decisions for us. The voters need to make the decisions. So how do you bridge that? And often this is through images. think about communicating through images, communicating through what are the actions that are for you relevant, and helping them to see the logic.
So what I see and again, I think a lot of engineers take pride in the complexity of what they figured out, and that is okay. And I think that is all good for that. But if you come to that message to transfer this message to a wider audience, then you need to take the complexity out, and then you need to take the essence of your analysis. And that's often even more difficult. So to get in this whole complexity and figure out what's all needed, and you take all different angles to your analysis, fine. But then coming back to the essence of what you can simply communicate and give direction of the team, that is the trick and the key to being successful in your communication.
Well, the first is, again, asking questions. Who is your audience? And what would their relationship be with energy saving? And that might be a different one for everybody in the room. Do you have children or grandchildren, and what would you like their world to look like in 10 years? Or it might be that if you want to keep on using your computers and your gadgets, I'm a gadget person, I love them, but I know they take up so much energy. If there is to be enough energy, what are we supposed to do together to make sure that there'll be enough energy in the future? And everybody knows it varies from situation to situation. Who's your audience? So yeah, start by asking questions, and asking questions to find out who is that and what are they being influenced by.